And welcome to WAAAGH Tactics Analytics, where we have top player coverage, the stats, and the facts, and of course, good old honorable mentions. So today we'll be looking at how have the Orks been doing since the doom and gloom, since the rise of the GW hammer. The Orks have been just making it through with a lot of different detachments coming out to play. But today we're going to show good old-fashioned War Horde coming out on top on a GT with a good old fun Dread Mob list that ended up making a great run. Of course, we'll also have those honorable mentions and the stats and the facts. So if you're new here, be sure to pay attention, as this is every Wednesday, and then Friday we come out with other live content. But of course, we have to give a shout out to today's sponsor, the Baron of Dice. And of course, we have our paint competition thanks to the Baron of Dice. The entries are due 7/25, guys. You can see. So get those guys in. And of course, thank you to the Barons of Dice for allowing us to do this. And they have high quality custom dice that you can check up ours in the actual description. So check them off for 5% off if you use our discount code in the description, because nobody likes taxes. And then shout out to Forgefire Gaming. They offer competitive balanced terrain sets I use at home. It comes pre-painted and slotted acrylic bases, allowing for easy building bases removal and alignment without it sliding off the base itself. Highly suggest and recommend. Check those guys out as well. So let's start with the honorable mentions. So a bit new here, how we're doing it nowadays is I'm give you guys a couple honorable mentions. And if you want one of these to be covered, leave them in the comments. And then if whichever one is the most liked can be up for actually being picked to be covered in the future. So we have Bully Boys with Rudy Fresno, and we actually have some notes from him that we can cover at the end of the video of that when he went 4-1. And then we have John Anto with War Horde, and he went 4-1 as well. I have another on there because we actually do have the stats and the facts. So as we look to these stats and the facts, if I'm missing something or if the stats if we're at Meta Monday missed anything, let me know in the comments as well. So let's look at the Orks as a whole, everybody, and shout out to the chat. It's been a while, Gits. I've been out, I was on vacation, and then I also got some Nurgle contagion. So here we are out here. Seems like the whole meta got a Nurgle contagion, though, while I was gone, right? We seen it coming. So shout out to you guys. Whoa, right, I'm not going to go too crazy and destroy your eardrums. But Orks are sitting at a whopping 41% win rate right now. We had 4-1 placings, and then we had one event winner. That's the first one since that actually happened. And we do have notes from the player themselves, so we can actually talk about what he was actually thinking and doing here in some of these matchups to give some context. So we have Bully Boys, only 3 players, 33% win rate. The Hunt, 4 players for 45% win play. The Hunt with 0 event wins and placings, but it says 60% win rate. The list we're going to cover from Dread Mob today is actually from, I believe, last week. So it's okay. No problem with that. We have Green Tide, 35% with 4 players. Goodness. That I would, I didn't, but interesting to look through that to see if people were either trying new archetypes, if people really were just hard countered by running into a lot of these meta bullies that actually have the volume to destroy Green Tide. A lot of time people forget the context of an Ork Green Tide is different to something like Astra Militarum, Guard Body Tide, or GSC Tide, where they're regenning entire units back on the field and repositioning them. Orks don't get to do that. So if you take away our assets, if something dies too early, we fail to actually kill you and slow down your attrition rate, then the Green Tide can fall off. And right now we're seeing in the meta with Death Guard having plenty of blast, critical 5s, being hard to kill themselves. Then we have, of course, even Emperor's Children has good volume. World Eater's reliable output. There are arguments that Green Tide can do fine nights, but at this point that their cost is now, it's not really nearly as consistent or reliable, and it does take more piloting than not. So Green Tide, for the first time, win rate has actually fallen off quite hard, even with a respectable weekend representation rate. Then we have Cult of Speed, so 60% win rate, but no event showings. Not sure where those win places are coming from. Could be RTTs or something, or maybe events or whatever. But it was only 1 player, so I'm not sure where he was at. But shout out to you, Cult of Speed. Get the Hunt for 20% win rate. Ouch. Then Tactical. The Hunt. More Hunt. I meant more DACA. More 20% win rate. Sorry. With the 1 player, so that's where it is at. We have Tactical Brigade with the 48%. Now here's the kicker: it says 4-1 placing, but I think that there was just a miscalculation, and the bully boys are the ones that had the 4-1 placing. Not sure if those stats are actually swapped or messed up. But we do have a bully boys list that, like we showed in the honorable mentions, and we don't have a tactical brigade list. If I click this, it doesn't show up at the bottom, so I'm not sure where that came from. I think it's just a mistake, but that's fine. And then the war horde list, we mentioned one of the honorable mentions, and we're going to cover one of those gets anyways in a bit. So shout out to you guys in the chat. How you guys all doing? Let's take a look at our GT winner. The top performing player of this past weekend. So shout out to you, homie. We're excited to cover Tom Godfrey's Total Carnage GT win. So we do have some notes from him. He's in our Discord. He's very talkative, lovely guy, UK time zone. So of course, check him out as well. Let me get rid of this little banner that's in our way, you guys. We don't need to see that no more. So here we are with the good old fashioned Trukk spam from Mr. Godfrey. So let's look at the list real quick, and then we'll go over the notes, his thoughts, some changes he might consider, if any at all, and what was happening in each one of these games as we go over this. So we have good old-fashioned double beast bosses and 3 war bosses. Plain and simple, nice and clean on the character. I really like when Ork players keep it to about 5, roughly 5, and if you can keep them to relatively effective cost value, such as war bosses, beast bosses, you really can't go wrong. But these are good cost benefits, right? So if you're an Ork player, don't have any war bosses, consider a Big Mech, for example, but stay around that kind of cost of 70 to 80 to get that good value. Then you have the 2 10-man snaggers. These are classics in War Horde since the beginning of our index. So nothing to be shy of here, as the meta is what we like to call sometimes a haul spam, where there's a lot of monsters, vehicles, hauls, that you can actually take advantage of this unit of, and then just having the strength up to 6 feels really good too. Can't go wrong here. But the fun thing that I love about Mr. Godfrey for his battle line is he loves these 10-man units of boys. Yes, and you're talking about War Horde, that's what we love to see, right? If you're going for, you don't even have to go for the full skirmish, right, where you're taking 3 breaks, 3 knobs, 2 characters. You don't have to skew that hard into like losing your combos and your throttling potential by just sticking 10-man units of boys. It brings OC, it brings trading, it brings early game pressure, it brings volume of punches, it brings the saturation E5 bodies, and then you stack that with the 5 trucks. There's what we like to do a lot of taxi cab driving or leapfrogging, where maybe a unit will start inside of this truck. They will disembark, participate in the game early towards the mid table, and then a different unit, a SWAT team, for example, will embark in this truck, and then that truck will now reposition staging and prepare for the proper WAAAGH turn. So when you have these units and you go, well, there's many assets here, this stuff going in reserve, I really like to play pressure early. You don't have to necessarily put any of this. It can happen that you can, in some game matches, put a unit in reserve, for example, that's good for an ingress. Of course, that's always a viable option, but you have to play that way, which is how he likes to play these trucks and these 10-man units. And yeah, they are for going early, they are for getting their sticky off when they can too. But remember, when you're playing War Horde, it's about the pressure, setting up for that WAAAGH turn, getting stuck in. And when you have all these other redundant units that are for actually getting stuck in, the boys really help set that up, and it can't be under valued how great of a 10-man unit boy is for battle line, especially as War Horde. Then we have 2 breaker boys. Of course, those 2 breaker boy units were given war bosses. We like to go back and forth on this community, right? You guys hear this live chat, you guys are popping off. There's about 30-something people in the chat, maybe more. When you guys take your breaker boys, or if you're about to get them, for those gets who don't have them yet, you taking a war boss on them, yes or no? A lot of the times when I talk to people, I say I really do like to bring that war in there, and so did he, because when it comes to whether you need the volume of punches from the war boss, you need the consistency of actually getting +1 to hit from the war boss, and the fact that you keep the punching potential up from this unit if you were to take an Overwatch or a little bit of losses. Nonetheless, it makes this unit much more viable, way more to punch up, and actually gets its trades off. And he definitely doesn't underestimate this unit. He loves it, absolutely loves it. Everybody gives all the love to the tank buster units, and you still no tank busters on this list, as it could be, as it, in my opinion, should be when you're playing your War Horde list. So appreciate your breaker boys. A lot of time Ork players look at them and aren't appreciating them because a little costly, not as easy to get stuck in, kind of soft, but hey, they do long work, great you're effective with them. But you have to be effective by sticking them with SWAT teams. Here you get the 2 5-man units of flash kits. Go really far in this game when we go over his actual matchups, how you utilize them. Love their multi-purposeness, and they're just boatload of punches and shots. Then we have what's always fun to see is the 22-man unit of Gretchen. There is no Zod. There is nobody leader for him, of course. It's because this guy is used for screening his entire backfield, right? It's also used to draw what we like to call a dead card, where when Call the Horde is pulled from the enemy, they cannot just simply discard it for one not being on the. Yet, if they were to go for that really far backline unit, it's pretty much impossible to take out one shot, or even reasonable to go get in one shot if you were to pull it on turn 2, for example, or something like that. It's really reliable for you as the Ork player to just leave it back there and not have to worry about someone going after it. And it just becomes one of those fun, tricky pieces, right? So he loves to bring it. He stands by it. He loves it. We've talked about it in other videos as well. So consider it for a fun little Orky tech piece. He does have another unit of Gretchen. That's for going forward, playing the OC game, taking up more space, pushing people's reserves back, whatever it may be. Remember, there's leapfrogs here, so he could even start a unit of Grots in the truck if he wanted to. Then we've come back to the nice, good old-fashioned, what we used to call the scalpel and index, the 10-man Nob unit with a war boss. He still loves this unit, still thinks it has great threshold. The fact that Knights came down, the fact that a lot of the Death Guard stuff that you want to kill anyways is around T9. T9 is just kind of the name of the game right now. People are standing on it. And whenever that's the case, Nobz get even more play. So there was that moment where Nobz were kind of pushed to the wayside, where it was like, well, they don't really have their place. Is it Breakers? Is it Nobz? Is it Beast Snaggers? Well, guess what? Tom's answered that question. It's all 3 of those units. You just don't bring them in 3s. You bring them in moderation. So here we go. We get the Nobz. We get the Breaker Boys. We get the Snaggers and the basic boys on this list. I absolutely love it. And there's plenty of reason you should too. So let's go over his actual path to victory. People are saying for their Breaker Boy units, they like to bring the Weird Boy. That's a fun one. Breaker Boy. Yeah. I still, but we're asking War Boss, not, War Boss or not. Let me know. So let's see. We have Tom Godfrey. As you can see, he pulled out 2 100s, 89, 95, and a 99. So shout out to you. Great job. Well, it seems like my internet's being a little slow right now. Just make sure you guys are good on that. All right, cool. So let's take a look at his path to a victory, as we always think that's important. Then I'll give you his notes and how some of this went. So right off the bat, we got Death Guard, the Shamble Right Rot Vectorum. So Biologist Putrefier, 2 Demon Princes of Nurgle, a Fall Blightspawn, and Typhus. 1 10-man unit of Plague Marines, followed by a 7-man unit, 2 7-man units of Plague Marines, and then a 5-man unit of Plague Marines. 3 big bricks of 20 Poxwalkers, and then 3 10-man units of Poxwalkers, followed by 2 units of Death Shroud. So if that is this disgusting Poxwalker unit that's looking to run forward, get the contagions on you, try to trade bodies with you, hold you back, they infiltrate, they play the middle of the table, and they are just thick. Yet, when we actually go over his notes, he actually had a lot to say about this, as obviously it went his way. So when we actually talk about what he liked about his list, right, where the redundancy, there's multiple of the same units, so if anything dies, he knows that he has multiple to do the same job, and some of those jobs overlap, right? Like the Nobz and the Breakers, where they can sometimes go after the same targets, or the Nobz and the Beast Snagger Boys, for example. Then we have quality and quantity of output, threat saturation, so good on trading, and his board control. And so when we speak about his board control, even though he didn't have something like infiltrators, for example, he had the 10-man unit of boys and all of the trucks that are moving around with them. So let me pull up his list so you guys can stare at that instead of this ugly Death Guard list. He said on turn in this game, he infiltrated 60 to 70 of those Poxwalkers, but Tom was able to go first. So he disembarked the boys. He disembarked both unit of flash kits, and he actually disembarked the Beast Snagger Boys. He said, if anything, he actually overkilled. He didn't need to disembark so many of these units to kill those Poxwalkers, as they were pretty much dead without the WAAAGH. So he killed 50 to 60 of those Poxwalkers, And with that much punching and getting stuck in, the Death Guard player playing a little bit more defensive wasn't in position to actually get off kills on him, as the shooting kind of just didn't work. It kind of just bounced. It mostly just bounced. At that turn, he was in position to wall really hard. He picked up both Demon Princes, Typhus, and then most of the Plague Marines on that turn. When he actually did end up getting charged with the Plague Marines, he ended up fighting on death with the 10-man Nobz unit, and that was pretty much the swing of the game. So it's one of those things where Orks actually do have the tools to deal with all those term poxwalkers. But the fun part here that I think he was really trying to stress was the 10-man unit of boys, that either or he could have committed to do that. He didn't think I needed all the snaggers or the boys. As me and him are going to talk hopefully tomorrow or Friday, and he, would it have been better for just the boys to come out? Would have been sufficient at that point? I would like to hear, but he did love the flash kits in that case to get out, because they're duality, shooting them and then charging them, being strength 5 and then saturation of punches. So he had more than enough for that, which allowed him to clear that first wave, take the mid table. Then when the Death Guard player is reactively moving closer to at least get shots off on him and stage counter charges, well, then now you have the wall. You take advantage of the fact that you're faster than them, and you come crashing down on them. They only have so many strats that they can activate at once. And CP, of course, they are going to be able to reduce damage, and they are going to have very durable units. But Orks have a bunch of just straight volume, taking them to saves, and they don't have armor of contempt, which means something like your power claws are really going to go a little bit further than you typically expect as an Ork player going into a power claw army and power armored army, and it went really well for him. So let's look at his next matchup. What shots you get? Change the camera view. What's up? You see me before my forehead? Let's see. Let me know. So we go to, and he got a one fat 100 there. Then he goes into his second matchup, which was Astra Militarum. We have the Hammer of the Emperor. So we know what's going on here. We have a big old Cadian command squad, Gaunt's Ghost, so the nice trickster toolbox unit, Lord Leontis, one Rogel Dorn commander, and then a Tech Priest Engine Seer. We have one Cadian shock unit, 2 Catachan jungle fighters, 2 Torox primes, Baneblade, 1 Cyclops demolition vehicle, 3 Vanquisher, and then a basic Ogren for that command squad. So of course, as you can see, nice good old-fashioned parking lot, good old tanks, vehicles. He's just trying to lay the hammer down on you. There is good survivability here. But let's talk about how he felt like this game actually went. He said it was actually felt like this, though for him it was a total mismatch with good staging on the GW terrain. He said the Breaker Boys made a mess of one of the Russes, and one of the Beast Bosses through Unbridled Carnage and Fishing for the critical 5+s was able to put 18 mortal wounds on on a Russ on his own. Now, of course, was it a Russ? No, it was a Russ. Now, of course, you can't necessarily rely on 18, but that is an astounding number. Yet, when you are fishing with Unbridled Carnage, for you guys that are not aware of it, when you are using your Breaker Boys and you're punching into a vehicle or monster, the Beast Snagga Boys, the Beast Snagga Boys' ability to reroll the hits means that when your Beast Boss himself is going to make his attacks, you're going to pick his sweep attack, you're going to pick up anything that isn't a 5 or a, and simply re-roll it for the chance to do more 5s and 6s to make your attacks go from 6 to 7 hits to more like 12 hits, and then convert those to dev wounds. So that's what he means by fishing. Very, very powerful ability for you to be able to do that. Really, that what makes the difference with the Beast Boss in War Horde than any other detachments. And then nonetheless, he just said that after that point, he just had too much and overran him with damage and anti-vehicle saturation, I guess. So he just absolutely pulled that Astra Militarum player apart. Of course, as we know, it takes a little bit more than that. He was simplifying it, but having a 10-man unit of boys to clear those early battle line units that are also on the way, and then stage up, make him pull some of those tanks out to shoot those boys off those objectives, because boys don't just fall over. One Torox and then one battle line unit isn't going to reliably kill 10 boys. They're going to pull a tank for that, and then in that place, you're positioned to run up and get some charges off. So awesome. Great job by that. 10-man boy units leading the way again. So we move to his third game, where he went into the Thousand Suns, the Grand Coven. So we have Demon Prince of Zeech with wings, Exalted Sorcerer, Infernal Master, Infernal Master, Infernal Master. Wait, those are all, yes, they were all Infernal Masters. One with the Umbreflic, I can't even read. Umbrellific crystal, and then Magnus the Red. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 Rubric Marine squads, 2 Rhinos, 1 Chaos Spawn, double Mutalix Vortex Beast, and then Singor Enlightened with the Fate Cast Great Bows. That's a really long name. That's a long name. So Thousand Suns are shaking up the meta if you have the proper pilot, but you know, our boy did have a proper game plan into them, as Orks have been notoriously good into Thousand Suns whenever they have their time in the sun. So we have, it was supply drop, so you made sure to actually reply what mission this was this time. Shout out to my Git. He said, in this case, the Thousand Suns went first. He clumped everything, the defender, a little bit more defensively, trying to actually make his Mutalix Vortex slightly forward so you can get some shots off possibly. But in this case, you know, our Tom read the battlefield as to, well, I'm just going to go all in here. I'm going to WAAAGH turn 1. And when he broke it down, he WAAGhed turn 1 because of the board presence and the ability to run out and tag and to jail him. Not necessarily for the offensive potential the WAAAGH would bring, but for the actual board presence positioning it would bring. So in that case, even though he knew he wasn't getting off on the best targets, he wanted to hit Magnus. He was hoping he could kill one of the Mutalix Vortex Beasts with the Breaker Boy units and then pile into Magnus. Even though he wasn't able to get that off, he knew he wasn't going to reliably get it off. He still pulled a WAAAGH turn 1. That way he could actually just get board control and kill everybody out, because he felt as if he allowed the Thousand Suns to start playing their game. They would start popping open the trucks and then cleaning out whatever's inside of the vehicle. And not only does that make you lose assets on Ork player, but if you're playing this sort of list, that means you can't use those trucks for now repositioning offensively and getting in their face later, right? So whatever was defensive in position to taxi or jump into that truck in position for later, because you know he was still defensive turn 1 himself. If let's say Tom himself played defensive turn 1, he and the guy ended up turn 2 coming out and popping those trucks. Well, whatever was staged to prepare to, let's say, allow the boys to jump out of the truck and move forward, and then the SWAT team jumps in. Well, now the SWAT team is even further back. They're the distance of the boys and the truck that were positioned, meaning that when you do call a wall, you're even further back and you're out of position to start getting in fights, and then your fight might even be centralized. It might be scattered all over the table, where if you start losing some of these and dice don't go your way, well, then he's going to start scoring and keep winning. So in this case, he said, no taxi. I'm not allowing this to happen. I'm just going to get out and start punching. Then he said lots of the taxi cab services, right? So now that the trucks were empty of the boys, the flash kits got out, and they were shooting at the Rubric Marine Rhino. They popped that actual Rhino and they charged the unit instead. Later, the Nobz and the Breaker Boys were able to get their charges into the Mutalix Vortex Beast. Like I said, they actually weren't able to touch Magnus. But on the following, on turn 2, that's when he got more gets out, the boys, and Snagga Boys on, and that actually allowed him to parking lot jail the Thousand Suns player. He was slowly over time taking wounds away from Magnus between the Snagga Boys. But nonetheless, the Thousand Sun player was stuck fighting out of his deployment zone to get the Orks off of him, right? So he was fighting out of his deployment zone, and just by losing some of those assets and being out of position, having to fight the Orks when their 5-up invul went off for that first turn meant that he was losing assets and not able. He had already lost too many assets that he was able to dig himself out of the Ork hole. Like we said, just a lot of bodies, and then on that wall, those Ork boys end up sticking around longer than the enemy really expects. So absolutely love it. He said ultimately, he just having trucks and the Grats pinning him in, and even in the end, right? So the Grats started to pin him in. The leftover trucks that never got killed were pinning him in, and the enemy ultimately never scored a single primary and stayed jailed the whole time. So he said, well, that was my key to victory, just holding him in jail, not caring about what I necessarily killed with the WAAAGH, but holding him place with my WAAAGH. So that's an awesome win. That's a veteran play right there when you understand that as an Ork player of, well, sometimes I'm wanting just because I need to get where I need to be, and not allow you to stage up on me and take momentum from me. So even if it's not as big of a momentum swing or attack as this time, it's enough that I've completely changed the outcome of this game, and it's all on my terms. So great job there. Let's see as we move into his 4th game. Pull that over here. Shout out to you guys. So that was an 89-point win. He said he made a mistake when he was with his cards, and that's why he wasn't able to score his 100. Then we move into his fourth game, which was Leagues of Voltan. So we have Iron Here Champion, Grimnir, Hearthkin Warriors, 1-2 of those units. Of course, remember they can break apart their squads, put all their special weapons in one squad. So that's pretty cool. 4 of these Sagitar, the T10, scouting potential. A built-in keyword for that. So that's typically what this army does, right? If you haven't played into Leagues of Voltan, they have a very simple and pretty efficient game plan depending on the pilot. So we have Brognir Thunderkin, 1 big brick of the Berserkers, followed by 2 5-man units of the Berserkers. These guys are kind of like their versions of Nobz, but they have built-in fail no pains. Then they have a Hearthguard unit, they're little Terminator dudes. 1 Fortress, and then 2 of the Pioneer bricks, 2 6-man units of those, playing the angles. Really good and effective as the Orks, especially once you get grudgeons going on here. So what's really going on with the Leagues of Voltan army, but they don't have infiltrators on this list. So I guess he just didn't feel like the need for them to deny. I'd like to assure that he had his own if anyone would deny his scouting, but he's going to scout forward, have you kind of maybe kill his battle line, little trash scout units, drop in those Terminators and maybe even those bikers behind them, and Thunderkin get all the shots off with his big land fortress, and hopefully get some grudgeons out of those little battle lines you killed, and follow up with like these berserkers as the counter charging. But when we actually look at what happened in the game, he said for this one, he said it was a very well respectable V-Leagues of Voltan players, a 3rd in the UK. And typically he does a lot of the 20-man berserker bricks, but in this case what happened was he scouted backwards, right? Which is interesting, and as we go on we'll see why. He said when he did scout backwards with those, the Tom ended up still getting to go first, which was great by him. Great job, he was getting to go first again. And he went in stage though, because of the scout backwards. All he could really do was stage. In this case, the Leagues of Voltan player was able to move up, pop some of the vehicles, but not actually. Yeah, he opened it up with the bikes, but he wasn't actually kill everything inside because of his scout backwards. So already we can see that typically how this army works is because they're slow, other than that scout, they kind of have to push you back with their transports and those battle line units, fill up the space, and then have multiple units target the one unit they want to kill each turn because of grudgeons, but also because they're not really that effective like single platforms of League of Voltan. So they requires a couple of their models and units to set up to shoot one of our units to effectively clean it all up. So in moving backwards, as we said here, is he had to use both of his bikes to pop trucks, but then he had nothing to follow up and actually kill it, which means as he was out of position, it meant that he had to readjust to try to get those guys back into the fight. And this readjustment allowed for a nasty turn 2 WAAAGH. So on turn 2 WAAAGH, he said that he pulled a bunch of 5s and 6s on his advances, started making some big old charges. He got lucky again with these flash kits and ended up popping one of the Sagittars. And then the Warriors got out, but he was still able to make some big charges anyways. And even though he did move backwards, those big advances allowed him, big charges allowed him to still touch the Sagittars that were further back. So the boys were able to kill the battle line units that had came out of the Sagittar or touch other units, pile into other units after they killed those Sagittar, and they were so far up the table that it was actually pretty bad. Eventually, the Breaker Boys got into the Hecaton, and the bikes eventually just got mowed down by the Beast Snagga Boys, and that was game, right? Beast Snagga Boys, again, as we spoke about, getting up to their strength 6 means that they're at that right point cost to pick up those bike units efficiently. They have a lot of wounds, for the most part. I think they're 3 a pop and T6, but hey, you got that's where all Leagues of Voltan has an odd toughness of 5 and 6. So you'll feel the difference with your flash kits and your Beast Snagga Boys. So shout out to that get 95-point win right there. So effective game and pressure into Leagues of Voltan. I always love to see it. Then we go into his last game, which was the Chaos Demon. So this was a bit more of a Zeech focused one. This was the Zeech one where they give you they have like these weird tokens. I've played this as well before, and it is odd where they give you multiple tokens, and those tokens can be used kind of like CP in the most basic ways, and like re-rolling an advance or a charge or a hit roll or something like that. And if you fail to use them, then they can like go away, and And if you use them, then the enemy also gets to get theirs back. So it's pretty hilarious. So it was unusual. Chaos with Demon Prince with wings for the Zeech with the Zeech mark. Kairos, Fate Weaver, and then the Lord of Change. Nurglings, 2 10-man units of Pink Horrors. If you never played against before, them they're part, and in that case, into the brimstones with their little red dude. So it's kind of awesome. They cost a lot, but they can break apart. But if you one shot the unit, they don't really break apart necessarily, and then it sucks for them. So 2 10-man units of those, 1 10-man unit of Plague Bearers, Beast of Nurgle, Burning Chariot, 3 Flamers. Okay, 3 units of Flamers, but 2 of them are the 6-man unit. So these guys are kind of cool because they have invulns. Somewhat of pretty good Flamers into Orks. Volume, I think it's strength 5 on their Flamers as well, and they can fly. So this is probably their most effective unit on their list. But when you do make contact with it, they do fall over and die. I think they're -1 to hit as well. And then 2 units of Screamers. So Screamers are like their anti-vehicle. They're like 4+, -2 AP, 2 damage, 6 strength 6, maybe 2 or 3 attacks. Again, I think 2 attacks a piece. So they can like pop trucks, somewhat reliably. Not a ton of damage coming from this, but they do have a lot of shenanigans. So as for his list, he said he got to go first. He ended up staging. Ultimately, the Lord of Change ended up popping one of the trucks. And then he started using the Screamers to kill the Beast Snagga boys that were inside of it. He made a ball of Plague Bearers and Pink Horrors. He charged everywhere. He picked up the Horrors, the Pinks, the Screamers that had hit him, the Nurglings, the Plague Bearers, and he ended up getting into one of the Demon Princes with his Breaka boys. So crushed him. And then the Beast Boss almost killed Kairos, but didn't end up pulling that off. And in that case, he said if they traded back and forth for a little bit, but ultimately he had too many proper assets for killing these guys. Like even those Flamers, they will mess up your Orks on like the Overwatch or if they get to shoot them, but just run up and tag them, start beating them up. They can't really do anything about it, and they're still only T4. So you do have the proper volume and punches to kill them anyways, even with their -1 to hit, I believe, and their 4-up invuln. You'll chew through them. So he ended up putting a fat, what was the score on that one? He ended up putting a fat 99-point win up on that guy. So great job. He said it was great fun playing into that Zeech list. As for his final notes on that, he said his MVP were the double Beast Bosses, as they were both able to one-shot or oversaturate any one vehicle unit, but then also appreciate the value that the Snaggas brought between volume of punches, OC, and ability to stay alive, right? Compared to, let's say, a Snagga Boy unit, you lose 4 of those. Breaker Boy unit, you lose 4 of those guys to Overwatch. Well, that unit can't kill vehicle anymore. You lose 8 of your Snagga Boys, and you can have a Nob 1 dude and the Beast Boss alive and still just completely flip over Lehman Russ. So he said that was one of his favorite MVP units, and also the 20-man Grot unit. Nobody ever tried to take his home objective at all, and multiple times throughout multiple games, the enemy drew a dead card, what's called a Horde, whether they didn't score it or they straight up just had to burn a CP to it. But one thing he wants you guys to remember is key to victory is practice. Knowing your own army and knowing a bit about the enemy's army, knowing the local metas, and just knowing when to drop CP and when to save CP. So CP management, as always talked about. And he said he remembered he fought on death and then interrupted several games, for example, that he felt was really important too, which is a lot of CP in the bank management, right? Like we talk about a lot. So shout out to Yuga, and they can fall back and shoot. Okay, nice. Thanks for remembering me. Flamers can. All right, cool. Either way, they still are only T4 and they still get beat down. But yes, they can fall back. Typically, we do a great job beating them up. But thanks for reminding me, John. Shout out to John Anto. What's up, boy? Whoa, we got an honorable mention to this gate for the shout out. So if you want to see how he did, leave it in the comments and give it a like. Love that guy. And as for Tom Godfrey, check him out in the Discord. Let's get a war for our undefeated Ork War Horde list with double bosses, triple war bosses, 2 Snaggas, 3 10-man unit of boys, 2 breakers, 2 flash kits, 1 big mob of Grots in the backfield, 1 minimum subs unit of Grots, 10 Nobz, 1 Storm Boy, and then 5 trucks. Good old fashioned the truck spam. And now we move on to the cherry on top, we have Sean Olson and his Dread Mob list at the Huzzah Hobbies Road to Nova. So this was a 40 person event. Let me even pull this up real quick. Let me get rid of this. Let me get rid of some of these tabs, guys, while you behold the marvel that is on the screen of, yes, this was a Stompa with triple knots making an appearance. So this was a real event before people think this was just some wonky event here. We have multiple Artaboard players showed up here, and the Ork players right here at 5th place. Hey, with U.S. Army Sports. Whoa, let's go. So we have 46 players here. So yeah, let's get right here. Form 1, great job by him. Let's talk about his list. I have extensive pleasure in Dread Mob and this sort of list. So let's talk about how it actually plays out and what it actually did and what he actually had to face. So we start off with obviously 3 mechs. So we get three mechs and 6 minimum sized units of Gretchen, followed by 2 Morkanauts, 1 Gorkanaut, and a good old Stompa. That's it. That's the whole list. That's the entire list. No more things to think about other than that. Now, how this is going to go, a lot of the time you are going to embark the Gretchen into multiple of these walkers. You are going to use the other ones to screen your backfield because you cannot allow people to get behind you with this sort of list ever at all. One of those mechs is absolutely always babysitting the Stompa, and then the other ones are, one of them is going to be shared. And that does sound kind of funny, but ultimately the difference between the Mork and the Gork, other than their damage profile of their weapons, is really that 5-up invuln, which means a lot of the time that Mork is going to be sometimes what we like to call the Kickstarter, the Igniter. He might end up being the first one to get out into the middle of the table before you call the wall, because he's going to be riding that 5-up invuln to get full commitment out of the enemy, right? Let's say you're playing, let's pull up, let me see, pull up here. Okay, I'm going to see if I can do this, guys. I should have thought about this beforehand. Let me pull up my screen. Oh, I need to do this the proper way. Don't worry, I got this. But as I set this up, keep in mind, this is absolutely legit when people are using Stompas and knots, and it's not just that they're just memeing out, necessarily just having fun, as we've seen it multiple times throughout the entire existence of the Codex, where people have great times and perform. Now, as this is a hull spam, when you're able to bring the hull that destroys all the other hulls, now you have great options. Now, let me pull over to the other board that I have up for you, Gits. Let me get this out. All right. Oh, I should probably zoom in more here, huh? Oh, long one. Let me zoom in. Oh, that's too close. Oh, yeah. That's too close. So let's say you're playing layout 1, very common, very common. Thinking about the practical aspect of where the heck is the enemy going to hide from you if you were going to draw up into the absolute middle objective. If you were to say safely into this, what we call half box, your home just tagging that, because you can't really fit through here necessarily. So you might be boxing yourself in based off what objective you're playing in. But some people will stage up in this one. It means if a knot decides to start walking down to interact with the enemy's natural expansion, which is typically here, and they're starting to walk down this lane, the enemy can either overcommit to try to get to them, where they're right in the face of the Stompa, or if they start to play this long angle with their firearm, with their weapons, well, then the Stompa has free reign to them. If you're not scared as a Stompa player to actually get into combat and be countercharged out of the middle game staging, then you can simply tow up into this objective and see essentially the entire battlefield, other than this one natural expansion objective will be hidden. And in that case, you have multiple other Titanic Walkers that can run up to them. You have Grots that can actually help screen you and do reactive moves. And even though you're thinking, well, the enemy might just be able to pop me because there's so much anti-vehicle in the game, yes, but once you're riding your invuln and you have the saturation of multiple other T12 and then your one T14 body, able to just simply tag terrain pieces and look over them and shoot everybody that's in their way, and throttle between re-rolling hits or big shots for bigger gets, clinking claws so that they can get better sweep attacks, better punches on the enemy. It can just end up stacking and overwhelm the enemy. And if you do get the Stompa, he can play this layout 1, for example, and make it around this battlefield, right? Whenever I've spoken to people who do well with Stompas, or I've done well with Stompas myself, you can fit up into this side of the battlefield and actually start getting into combats. If you stage up in the middle and you aren't actually worried about the enemy, so you can actually make your way into the middle of the game and start shooting down this lane to people that are hidden back here. So things really get out of hand. And remember, your Stompa is going to have the ability in Dread Mob to possibly advance and charge, advance, shoot, and charge. Sorry. So as he's peeking that corner or moving towards the middle, he can get off. And remember, he can still walk over a terrain piece as long as he lands off the terrain piece. So these walkers are getting mobility. Then, you know, they don't get the ability to move through terrain as they should, but they're still playing the field and able to score, shoot, and really get into most of the combats they want on this GW terrain. So let's take a look at his actual path to victory. We have the missions. I don't have the exact layouts that he played every mission. It just says that he played 1 and 4 on day 1 and such. So that's why I show layout 1, because I'm sure at least in some of these games around layout 1. So let's take a look at his path. Can we get a wall for the Stompa? Let's go, chat. Whoa, can we get a wall in the chat for the Stompa again, making an appearance? Because it's real, guys. You might think, well, this is silly, but look at his actual games and realize that sometimes you can stat check the enemy with that cheapness, the speed, the throttling of damage, the Stompa being able to destroy every other hull and multiple of the other hulls in the game, also getting in fights, having board presence. It's a really real thing. It's a really real thing, and I've done it myself. You know, it was just an RTC that I won, but I've done it myself with the Stompa and multiple knots. It's real, and I'm nothing special, you know. So let's take a look at his first matchup. So yeah, thank you, Jank. Yeah, you get a whoa. Let's go for the Stompa. Yeah, you were out there with that Stompa too, and I've seen you. And Wicked Joe, shout out to Wicked Joe with the Death Dreads. So we have Tyranid Subterranean Assault Force coming in first. He said old Ravner rules. Sorry, no burrowing. None of that jankiness here yet, but it is to come. So we have a Death Leaper, Hive Tyrant, Swarmlord, Trigon, Biovores, Double Maleceptor, Double Moloch, Norn Emissary, Double Ravners, Tyranid Warriors, Bioweapons. You can automatically see a problem here for this Tyranid player. What is he going to do to really kill our vehicles in a reliable manner? Even said Morkanauts when it's go time, right? For example, Norn Emissary, if he does go first and he places himself on that middle objective, a Stompa with re-rolling hits is picking that guy up 100% of the time, especially if you use big shells for bigger gets. Now, keep in mind, if you're looking at the screen right now, the reason I have only 3 of the weapons highlighted in red is because I really want to stress the point whenever you're using your Stompa or considering it, you don't have to shoot all his guns. Simply use his 3 reliable weapons and ignore the other weapons so you don't have to take as many hazardous rolls. So between a Def Cannon, a Super Gatlinger, and a Super Rocket, you can kill 1 Norn Emissary with just a Def Cannon. Then you can pick a Maleceptor, for example, or a Moloch with the Super Rocket, or the Super Gatling itself. If you use big shells for bigger gets and you're going into a unit that has a 3-up save, for example, you can just put nasty volume of damage 3 in that case. Because in that case they get +1 damage for big shells for bigger gets. So then that Gatling gun becomes viable for killing light armored vehicles or light toughness vehicles. Is actually really fun to do and also works against enemy infantry. So don't forget that those might be the only viable weapons, but you can choose multiple targets and you're re-rolling hits, you're getting the sustain off of them, and you're able to reliably kill what would be considered these hulls or these big toughness chassis vehicles. And then at the same time, they're trying to deal with your Morkanauts, your Gorkanauts, and now your Grots that are getting pooped out of those walkers, walking onto objectives and flipping primary. So if they don't kill them, the Grots get to get out and then just whip the primary. If they do interact with that guy, well, then now they're exposed to multiple other walkers and the Stompa himself picking up all these monsters. Typically something like a Norn or a Swarmlord would consider themselves tough. When the Stompa can simply walk around the field and lay out 1, they're not tough at all. So I love to see that 96-point win there. And another win we got here is Wicked Joe with 10 WAAAGH Tactic gifted memberships. Whoa! So we're gonna be coming out with better content for that. I promise. Here we are, guys. This is the time of the growing WAAAGH. You guys are gonna see. We're getting those after action reports now. We've been working behind the scenes on vacation. So thank you to guys like you, Wicked Joe. We're gonna make it worth it. Here's a time to shine. And of course, he wanted to double down with the 20 month membership. Whoa! So don't worry, guys. We're getting new content for the members and for the free general community. So I'm really excited to bring that coming forward. Just hold on tight, guys. And then we have another wall from Two Snatcher. Whoa! Let's go. Thank you, J. Hugh. Thank you, J. Hugh. To all you guys that are here. I know you guys have been a hot minute. I'm really excited for the Orks and what was going on with the channel. We're like, they were like a couple subs away from 6K, I think, right now. The time was recording. So shout out to that. Now we move on to Sean's next game, which is against the Sisters of Battle. So we have a Canoness, a Magifier, Junith, Morgan Val, 2 Palatine, 2 Sisters of Battle Squads, 2 Emulators, 2 Castigators, triple Motorfires, Paragon Warsuits, Pig Brick of Sanctus, and then some Sisters, followed by 1 Caladius Assassin. So I don't have too many reps into Sisters of Battle, but we do understand the process of how Miracle Dice works. And as much as we appreciate our Orc Walkers, there's one thing they really, really don't have good defense is that the Stompa itself and the Gorkanaut don't have proper invulns. They have 6 of invulns, so when they eat Meltus to the face, they can be destroyed. Whenever I run into Dread Mob, the one thing I had an issue with was ran to a Salamander's list, and he had a ton of Meltaguns, and they were able to just melt through Orc Walkers, and that is in fact a weakness. So even though he's not reliably having high strength weapons, I can kill them all the time. Though he does have Morgan Val's unit can get +1 to hit, I believe, and +1 to wound and reroll hits, reroll wounds against the unit they're fighting if it's a vehicle monster when he's led by Morgan Val, so they can just straight up just destroy one of our walkers on their own if they needed to. On top of the fact that they still have castigators and emulators that have hunter killer missiles, so things can go downhill and end up killing you nonetheless. So they have the tools, and then also a lot of little units, right? Your Grots, though they are good for flipping OC and just being in the way, they don't actually run around and kill other stuff. So even these Sisters of Battle units, you're not going to have like great unit like activations to go hunt down that little trash unit that's scoring. And typically when you're an Orc person, pulling apart someone's army by killing the scoring assets when you can't kill the most valuable assets is going to be a difficulty. Now, of course, your Stompa can go off and super kill 1 castigator, maybe even 2, but that's where he just has a lot of little cheap, efficient killing things. And each time they pop out, they can hurt or really devastate one of your walkers and then finish them off ultimately. So, and I should have said, sorry, for game 1, it was Taken Hold on Tipping Point. And then for this one, it was actually Purge the Foe, which you would think, they're a bunch of little sister units, maybe you get them. But when you're losing your walkers and your Grots are getting picked up, then you're kind of losing the Purge the Foe here. And this was Crucible Battle, this mission M. Then we move to game. Is that you? Only Odious? Is that you, homie Sean? What's up, Sean? Is that you? What's up? Let me know. Is he right there, you little creep? Then we move on to 3. So 3 is mission J with Lynchpin. So he goes into World Eaters. He says, our rhinos don't need hunter killer missiles. Well, in this game, you kind of did. So we have a Demon Prince, a Corn Demon Prince, with the Helm of Brazen Fire. So this is his ability to reduce damage by 1. So in combat, they like to reduce damage by 1 with their strat, and then this as well. So that keeps them up. He says, no, I'm Decker. Oh, you were Decker? Who's Decker? Where is he? Oh, sorry. My guy was distracted. Well, it's all good. Well, shout out to you, homie. Then we go to, then he has Karn, Master of Execution, Favorite of Corn for those more dice, and then Berserker of Corn Glaive. He has 1 big brick of Zerkers. Oh, no, he has 2 of them. Yeah, 2 of them. Remember, they have little blood surges, so you shoot them, they can get into combat with you. Then we have 1 Rhino. That's right, there's not 2. Followed by 2 2-man units of Spawn. These guys are absolutely annoying. They can get +1 to wound, I think, on the charge, and additional AP, and then they have sustain. So they definitely punch up, and they're pretty annoying. Pretty efficient units, so pretty cool. Followed by 2 8-bound units, basic 8-bounds, followed by 1 exalted 8-bound unit, 2 Forge Fiends, and then a Jackal. And this was mission J, so it's linchpin and search and destroy. So right in each other's faces. But one thing that world eaters don't necessarily do is kill big, strong, titanic, high toughness units as reliably as they could before, or they don't have the units to do it as they did before. For example, like the Exalted A-Bound, or they're not going to be having their Primarch on here. So it's Anground's not making his appearance. So they can whiff into your Titanic Walkers. It's happened with me, and then they end up, you end up crushing them with your big crushing punch, and you're like, all right, go sit down now, little 8-pound. And then as for their Forge Fiend, they're getting picked up by your units as well. So it's real when these guys have to run out and punch you, and they don't, like, their shooting assets aren't really that good into you. So all of a sudden, these matchups and these game dynamics are changing real heavily for an Ork player. Compared to, like, if you were to play that right now, where it's a good trade back and forth, they're fast, they're reliable. They have volume of punches. It's like, ooh, they're good at punching elite infantry. It's a different change. It was a real win. Great job by that, because that's a legit World Eaters list. So then we move on to his fourth game, which was World Eaters again. And he just said, I don't own the 3 Forged Fiends. Absolutely, because everybody's running at least 2, if not 3. So again, we have a Demon Prince with the Helm of Brazen Fire, Karn the Betrayer, and then a Lord Juggernaut with Berserker Glaive. 2 big bricks of Zerkers, 1 Rhino, 3 Chaos Spawn again, 2 8-bound units, 1 Exalted 8-bound units, Forged Fiends, and then 2 Jackals. It's very funny how, like, as I've been doing this and following it since Index and World Eaters, I'm pretty familiar with World Eaters, and we see them all the time. At one time, I feel sorry for them, and at the same time, it's like humorous how their lists are almost always exactly the same, or within like 2 units or 1 unit of each other. And they're like, "But bro, that's all I got is my options." And I'm like, "Yeah, it's just a very how can you go wrong kind of army and faction, So 82-point win there for the same reasons. And then we go on to his last, and certainly not least game, because this was his hardest game right here. Game 4 was Hidden Supplies. In Crucible of Battle. So we enjoy the changes on that one. The mission's much more enjoyable now. And then we move on to 6. And mission 5 was against Blood Angels. This was mission B, Supply Drop, Tipping Point. And this one also has changed. So we have the Angelic Inheritors. Typically a tough, good fun matchup for Ork War Horde here. Now, of course, you could say, well, War Horde, I could fight on death and do good until these same matchups. Orks aren't really pulling the results necessarily for all that to say that that's exactly how it's going. But also, it's not as easy as, hey, I could just fight on death and win my way through all of these. And this is still a very fun way to win your games with just walkers and just going on the opposite spectrum. So I love to see it. We have 2 captains with jump packs, Commander Dante, a lieutenant with combi weapon, and then the Sanguinor. We have 2 Ball Predators, 1 Inceptor Squad, big old brick with plasma weapons, 1 Incursor Squad, 3 Sanguinary Guard, followed by a Scout Squad, Storm Speeder Strike Squad, and then 2 Vindicators. So Vindicators can be hit or miss, right? There's been games that I've played where the Vindicators absolutely hammer me with damage on my vehicles, sometimes blow away entire squads because blast, and then sometimes they do absolutely nothing. So you never know exactly what a Vindicator is going to do, but a Stompa is going to blow it away. And that's what we really like to see, right? Because typically that's what they're trying to hold the firing lanes with while they stage up and shoot you. Not happening here. Which means they have to come out, get into fights with, the Sanguinary Guard, have to run up and punch your Morkanauts, or, for example, like we said earlier, try to punch him out, get their +1 to wound, get some chip damage from the Ball Predator. It takes a combined effort, and as you're trying to chew away the early knots and the grots, then you reply by picking up some of those Ball Predators, picking up those Sanguinors, making them lose their assets, and then now you're just leftover big toughness. You do have to respect them because they have so much good ability to throttle and still kill you. Or even keep playing the mission with some of their leftover assets if you whiff. But nonetheless, great game because it was hidden the supply drop. So really it just came down to the low primary, came down to both of them were not able to score, the ones that were disappearing, and then it came down to the end of the game. So in that case, this list isn't really doing super great on secondaries unless the grots are getting out and doing it. So you can see this being a little bit cagey for a bit, and then hey, we're gun-honing it towards the end of the game. But I like to see it. Ultimately, fantastic, great job for again keeping it alive, and again and again and again. We get doubted for saying that the Stompa has real play and that you can have a good time with it and actually perform moderately well if you actually use it and have practice with it because you just want to have fun. You know, and people get down and they go, well, I get one shot because I played against a Baneblade. Well, I get it. That happens too. But, you know, if you're going to an event anyways, there's always a chance for bad matchups. And if you're playing the Stompa to a certain degree, there is a certain amount of thematic, just theme, fun, and power potential playing you want to have. And some of those games, it really will happen. Some of those win paths, it really will happen. What I'm interested to see personally, which I hope to test out here in a couple of days again, is how does my Stompa, one of these not spam or similar type of lists, do in tonight, for example? So Sean, if you see this, let us know in the comments. So shout out, a great win for you. Makes us all excited to see and inspired me to at least still have some fun and maybe even show this off on the after action report. So let me get some walls in chat for Sean Olson and his Dread Mob list, because this is a legit list, guys. As I said it again, I'll show it again. This wasn't some, you know, leftover bad plays. This was the path to Nova, multiple Art of War players here, Nova players here. Everybody came with their A game. You know, and Stompa still made its way to play. So even though there were really good honorable mentions I wanted to show, and then you guys let me know if we're going to cover those. But Orks just have so many cool, fun ways to play. We see Bully Boys sneaking around. We see Tactical Brigade list sneaking through and doing good. We see the Hunt list creeping around and doing good because early game pressure list. So I think there is really time for Orks to just be diverse and play what they want to play, but to the extent that they refine and stay consistent and understand the detachment and archetype they're playing, and that it actually suits the meta that they're trying to play it into, right? If I know people are playing, let's say, Space Marines, Librarian units, and then Gladius units, and I'm going to run into a bunch of Space Marine, maybe even Pack-bound. Well, okay, in that case, maybe my Walker units are getting blended up and shot and spit up because so much anti-range vehicles and units exist. So then, okay, I can't run that kind of archetype. Or I really want a Green Tide, but everybody has high volume ability to take the initiative away from my Green Tide and pick up these mobs efficiently. Well, then it's not that Orks necessarily suck with that detachment, or that detachment actually sucks at the moment. It's that maybe you're just trying to make a detachment or style work that's really not working in that detachment or style. You know, so even though there is the caveat of play what you want, there is the, well, in context and, you know, reading the battlefield with generalship and understanding of what's going on. So I'm a big favorite of that. Of course, War Horde is going to keep showing out because it's just good at doing what Orks like to do, which is training and playing efficiently for scoring. But I don't want anybody to be discouraged and try new things. So me personally, I'm going to only stick with Bully Boys and the Hunt and Dread Mob until Orks get changed. Really try to flush those guys out when I do these breakdown videos that I'll be doing, of course, as well, where I do each attachment again. I want to get them to be as charged up as possible with their wall energy. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. Most like video gets my comment gets my attention for video suggestions or what you guys would like to see going forward, and keep a lookout for those after action reports. We're really excited. All that being said, yeah, GW's gonna make us work, boys, and all mechs is pretty awesome. But there's always one thing to keep in mind: is don't cross our wall, because we'll not get T-foul. Whoa.